The question is, why can't third parties take off?
Polling from the Wall Street Journal and NBC News shows that, in fact, 47% would consider a third-party candidate in light of the 2016 election.
As we know, American politics is dominated by two parties, the Democrats and the Republicans. But that wasn't always the case. When George Washington became president, there were no political parties, none. What you may not know is that George was actually anti-party. Not having political parties was a good idea, in theory. In reality, it didn't work. There are actually dozens of third parties alive and well here in the United States, like the Libertarians, the Green Party, the Transhumanist Party, the United States Pirate Party, and even the American Shopping Party.
The two largest third parties in America are the Libertarians and the Greens. Libertarians don't really fall on the left or the right. They believe in total individual freedom and want the government to get out of people's lives. They're pro-choice, pro-guns, pro-gays, and pro-drugs. The Green Party, planted firmly on the left, strongly supports policies that strengthen environmental protection and social justice. Neither scored higher than single digits on Election Day.
While you may not have heard of them, a vote for them could have a huge impact. If a third-party candidate can get just 5% of the vote, their party can be eligible for federal election funds and just maybe shake things up.
So why haven't you heard more about these other guys? Because there are 50 different sets of rules for getting on the ballot. And the system can be so complicated that smaller parties can find it very, very, very difficult to navigate the political waters.
One major block is that Democrats and Republicans are automatically listed on the ballot in all states, while third-party candidates need thousands of signatures.
This is because states have complicated procedures to get candidates' names on the ballot. These procedures usually include a fee and a petition in which candidates gain signatures. It's also worth noting that these procedures vary from state to state.
Presidential debates are hugely important for candidates looking to raise their national profiles. Just look at what Donald Trump has been able to do this year. But the only candidates that typically qualify are Democrats and Republicans. And who sets up the qualifying criteria? A privately operated group called the Commission on Presidential Debates that's controlled by other Republicans and Democrats.
The biggest reason third-party candidates usually have no shot at the presidency is because of first-past-the-post voting, which is how the U.S. elects candidates. Basically, the president is elected from a set number of people on a ballot, and whoever gets the most votes wins. But according to a political principle called Duverger's law, this process invariably leads to a two-party system.
According to something called Duverger's law, in a country with winner-take-all elections, like the United States, two major parties are bound to develop. Here's why. Imagine a hypothetical winner-take-all election in which a range of parties receive part of the vote. Here, Party B wins a seat because it received the most votes, even though the majority of voters cast their ballots for other parties, against the winner. Duverger's law predicts that voters will see that outcome and behave strategically in subsequent elections, deserting the weakest party for more viable options. Over time, the weaker parties are squeezed out, leaving behind two major parties.
There's a very strong incentive to vote for one of the two major parties because people don't want to waste their vote by supporting a third party with no chance of winning.
However, other countries, like the UK, have proportional representation. Instead of voting for the Prime Minister directly, citizens can vote for members of parliament from different parties.
In a party-less system, it's very simple. Everybody in the state, they would go to the voting booth and they would vote for a party that they like best. And then at the end, we would see how many votes did each party get. And if you got 25 or 30 or 40% of the vote, that's how many seats you would get. And then the seats would be filled by just sort of running down a list that party leaders had made for themselves.
The majority party then appoints their leader as the PM.
Israel, Finland, Norway, Sweden, Germany, and New Zealand all use variations on this system. And as a result, voters have lots of choices when it comes to finding a party that represents their interests. And voter turnout in these countries is much higher than in the United States. Another popular system is called an alternative vote system. You show up and you have to rank a whole bunch of candidates in order of preference. A constituency will elect a whole bunch of different members as individuals, but it's still going to work out that if 40% of people were for Democrats, they'll end up with 40% of the seats. This is how legislators get elected in Australia and Ireland, and there too you see lots of political parties.
Chances are such a system wouldn't be implemented in the US, as the Republican and Democratic parties are massive establishments with huge amounts of power and money behind them. And they're the ones setting the rules. Despite popular support, as long as those rules favor a two-party system, chances are there won't be a viable third-party candidate for a long time.